Bible prophecy is not being taught in churches today, and yet it's more relevant than ever before. And here to talk with me about this subject is Bob Ulrich. Hi, Bob.
Good to be with you, Gary. We've got an exciting announcement to make today.
We have, in fact, a number of them, and we're going to be talking about the Rocky Mountain International Prophecy Conference just ahead, July 15th through 17th. Bob, it's sold out, but people can still attend.
Well, it's been sold out probably for 6 or 7 months now, and just another week, we actually are going to have 1,000 people descend on the Marriott Hotel in Colorado Springs. It is the place to be. It's going to be the most exciting prophecy conference of the summer, but you can't attend because it's sold out. How can we help you? Very, very simple. Through new technology we have today, if you've ever watched a video on YouTube, well, you're going to be able to live stream our conference direct from 2 rooms at the Marriott Hotel. And live streaming is a relatively new technology to a lot of people. It's really very simple. Explain it in a nutshell. You go to our website at prophecywatchers.com, sign up for the live streaming, and just a few days before the event, you'll get an email from the live streaming company directing you to a website, providing you with a password linked to your computer and your email address. And you're going to have the ability to watch, believe it or not, 27 speakers present 41 messages over a 60-day period. You have 60 days to watch those 41 messages as many times as you like.
Bob, a minute ago I made a statement that the teaching of Bible prophecy is more relevant than ever before. Why do I say that? Well, look at one feature that's been spoken of by prophecy teachers now for the last 40 years. The European Common Market, the 10 nations of the European Common Market. If you go back to the 70s, the 80s, the 1990s, people were saying what? They were saying the 10 nations of Eurocom were analogous to the 10 horns mentioned by Daniel, the latter-day world empire. And they were saying, look, there's a currency, it's called the euro, all the nations are coming together. This is the revived Roman Empire. Well, what do we see today? We see this revived Roman Empire crashing. It's falling apart. It's broke. And where do we see the real power? We see the power in China and in Russia, power being extended in the Middle East. We see financial ruin on the horizon as engineered by the Chinese. We see places other than Europe being instrumental in Bible prophecy. And that's why it's important to stay abreast with what's happening right now. And that brings me to our meeting, because our speakers are going to do exactly that.
Well, they're certainly going to cover all of the major prophetic events taking place today. All you've got to do is open up the internet, and it's just one after another, Bible prophecy hitting you square in the head. You can't deny it. You can't run from it. It's there for many of you today who don't believe the Bible. All we can say is the Bible is truly a guidebook to the future. I always jokingly go back to the movie Back to the Future and talk about Biff and how he discovers this little guidebook for betting. And he uses it to go back and bet on all these events and make many, many millions of dollars. And of course we laugh at that because we have a book here written 2,700 years ago that foretells the future with precise accuracy. The goal is not to get rich. The goal is to spend eternity with Jesus. The free gift is the gift of eternal life through Jesus Christ.
Bob, we're going to be talking about the New World Order at the Prophecy Conference in ways that it's never been spoken of before. We have authoritative speakers who will be speaking on that subject, but also other subjects that are much in the news these days. If you've been following Christian prophecy teaching, you know that there is a real conflict in the study and teaching of the rapture of the church. Is it pre-tribulation? Is it pre-wrath? Is it mid-trib? Is it post-trib? What is it? And what role does Israel play in the rapture of the church, if any? Bob, all these things are right at the top of our list of things to talk about.
And they are going to be discussed in great detail at the conference.
Yes.
You know, I was doing some reading in 2 Peter here recently, and many of you who read and study the Bible with us know this verse. And it says, knowing this first, there shall come in the last days scoffers walking after their own lusts and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning.
Right.
Well, who are those scoffers, Gary? You know, I was thinking about just this morning, thinking about the fact that if the rapture doesn't happen and these scoffers were in the tribulation, they're not going to be thinking about where is the promise of his coming and making a mockery of Christianity. They're going to be worrying about surviving gigantic hailstones and the nightmares described in the book of Revelation that take place in the tribulation. But if you go a little back, a little further in the 2 Peter, chapter 3, verse 16, Peter's talking about the Apostle Paul and his writings. And he says also in all his epistles, speaking in them of things in which some things are hard to be understood. But the second part of the verse is even better. And it says, which they who are unlearned and unstable wrestle, as they do also the other scriptures. Israel is the rest of the story, isn't it?
You know, these people who are scoffing, to me, they are the secular humanists of Europe and America. Atheism is now, if you will, the doctrine of the public school and the university. Atheism has been the doctrine of the universities of Europe for years. Anybody who believes in Jesus just is not cool anymore. The real strength of the intellect is to be found in teaching at the university level. And these, I think, are the scoffers that Peter was talking about.
They certainly fit into that category. The other category is people who are writing best-selling prophecy books without any singular reference to Israel playing any part in end-time prophecy. So in other words, Peter calls them unlearned. How can you interpret the Bible and leave Israel out of the prophetic mix into the future?
And in fact, a lot of people today are looking at the church as the savior of the world. Therefore, the church must go through the tribulation to bring salvation to the lost world during the judgments of the tribulation. That's a theory that's being taught. I do not believe that theory, and I know you don't.
I don't. Yeah.
But that's how hot these topics are, and that's why the International Prophecy Conference, July 15th through 17th, is so important to put on your list.
Well, we have some great speakers coming to the event. One of them is a well-noted biblical archaeologist and Bible scholar, Randall Price.
Yes.
And Gary has a magazine article that was just recently published by another organization. And this right now is one of the hottest, most debated subjects in Christianity, the location of the Temple Mount.
Yeah, I'm holding up a current magazine, and the double-page, double-spread article, Mount Moriah or the City of David. And what this magazine article is discussing is the location of the Temple Mount. Now, 10 years ago, Bob, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there were discussions about rebuilding the temple, going all the way back to 1967, the Six-Day War, in which the Temple Mount was actually captured by the Israeli army and held for about 24 hours before the oversight of it was returned to the Jordanians. But that act in 1967 put the Temple Mount on the front page. Still, there are those who say, no, that's really not the real Temple Mount. It needs to be discussed, and it will be discussed at our conference.
And it's really fascinating, the history of the Temple Mount. You know, most Christians are under the impression that in 70 AD, when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and killed the Jews and scattered them, that they were completely gone from the area. And of course, that's not true. The Romans actually, I don't want to say made peace with the Jewish people, but they kind of left them alone. They lived in enclaves all throughout the city. They came back to the Mount of Olives, where they were able to see the Temple Mount, to actually worship. They never forgot where their Temple Mount was.
Yeah.
And then something happened in around 132 AD to kind of change that.
From 132 to 135, first of all, Hadrian, the Roman Emperor Hadrian, decided to grace the temple platform with a temple of his own. And Hadrian's temple, as it was called, was a temple to the god Jupiter and Juno, and also to his mother, whose name was Elias. That was her family name. And so he renamed that temple mount Aelia Capitolina in honor of his mother. And he built a temple to Jupiter. He put himself out in front of the temple on a great steed, and he had himself dressed up as the god Jupiter. Well, this absolutely drove the Jews over the edge. They had really not wanted to attack the Romans, but in this case, such an insult to the Temple Mount, they could not abide it.
So that sent Simon Bar Kokhba into a rage, and he formed a revolt.
He did.
And he paid the price for that revolt. And the Jews paid the price because it wasn't long thereafter. They were actually banned from the city of Jerusalem, and they were no longer allowed to even come and see where the Temple Mount once stood. So you go through hundreds of years of history, you come to 691 AD. And I think something really important happened during that period of time relating to the Temple Mount and to Islam.
Well, the Caliph Omar had his scouts scout out the temple platform. And he had a specific goal. He wanted to locate the actual place where the temple was located. And it was well known at that time. In fact, really, the location of the temple had never been lost. And the Caliph Omar had his own temple built there. In fact, he had a miniature one built, and he approved of the design. Then they had a larger one built on what they thought and what they declared to be the exact location of the Holy of Holies. And it's there to this day.
So in 691 AD, the Temple Mount was covered in trash by Christians trying to defame the site.
Right.
This Omar, was that his name? You said?
Caliph Omar.
Caliph Omar discovered the Temple Mount, cleaned the trash off, and built the mosque on the site of the Jewish temple.
As is the custom of the Islamic world. That is, when they capture a historic worship site, they always build their own worship site right on top of it.
And to me, that is just an absolute huge point. You know, every month we publish a magazine here at Prophecy Watchers. We actually just published our 10th issue of the magazine.
Yeah.
And I know you have a few of them there. Each month we have a whole litany of writers, including, Gary Stearman, who writes our lead article every month, but a lot of other people. L.A. Marzulli, Tim Mahoney, Jim and Penny Caldwell, Bill Koenig, Tom Horn, just probably 20 different people who write for this publication. And it's really turned out to be something great.
Well, it gives us an opportunity to bring to the forefront the major subjects of discussion in the prophetic world today. Here's the January 2016, in which the lead article is The New World Order. February 2016, is America to be found in Ezekiel 38, is an article by Avi Lipkin. The lead article, The Tower of Syene, mentioned by Ezekiel. Where is it? Can you see it today? Well, you can. Read the magazine, you'll find out how. Here's the March issue of the Prophecy Watcher. Elijah is coming. And guess what, Bob? He's coming before the great and terrible day of the Lord. He's coming before the tribulation. And here on the April front page of the Prophecy Watcher is a Passover article about the Passover prophecies of the Lamb. How about May of 2016, the mountains of Israel in Arabia? This cover, by the way, showing a rock very near Mount Sinai, was visited by the Caldwell family, Jim and Penny Caldwell and their kids. And she writes all about the artifacts that have been found that demonstrate that Israel was actually there. Fascinating subject. Pentecost, the prophecy of Pentecost in the June edition of the Prophecy Watcher. I could go on, Bob, but I think we have one of the most interesting magazines out there today.
And just about everything you read in that publication, you're not going to hear about in church. We kind of joke and laugh about it because we cover fringe areas, we cover UFOs, we talk about the Nephilim, we talk about the New World Order. Lots of subjects that people are curious about, but always with a really strong biblical foundation. You'll never read anything in our publication outside mainstream dispensational theology. You can get the magazine, believe it or not, for just $19.95 a year for 12 issues. It's the most inexpensive publication I know of. Or, if you prefer, we've gone out on a limb, and we're in the waning days of a lifetime charter subscription. A one-time, tax-deductible, $100 donation makes you a subscriber to our magazine for the rest of your life. It's a lifetime subscription, or until the rapture of the church, which we'd like to think is going to be very soon.
Bob, we're going to be discussing all of the topics that you need to hear about, by the way. We're going to be talking about the absolute fragmentation of the European common market. We're going to be talking about Middle East politics. We're going to be talking about American politics. Bill Koenig, one of the featured speakers, is a White House credentialed reporter, a man with insight into American and global politics, and he's going to be bringing some, I think, common sense and Bible prophecy into the matter.
Now, I want to talk briefly about a guy by the name of Dr. Michael Lake. Mike was here, 2 or 3 months ago, and I was actually out sick that day, and I didn't get to visit with him. And I didn't get to watch the television program you shot with him on the Shinar Directive, his book. Well, I got to watch it last week, and I just sat there, and all of a sudden it dawned on me why so many hundreds of people are ordering this book, because he has information in there that I've never heard anywhere else. I've read a lot of stuff over the years. He talks about the Tower of Babel on the plains of Shinar. Now, you've written about this in the past.
Yes.
How there is a connection between the Tower of Babel and fallen angels that occurred right before the flood of Noah, and how the Tower of Babel was built to prevent another flood, to prevent another worldwide destruction. I mean, Michael talks about gigantic skyscraper-like walls around the city. That was the size of the city of London, and how Nimrod, basically you could call him the CEO of Babylon, had 12 palaces all around the city, and he could go to any one of these palaces. All of this excavation work. So I find the biblical archaeology really fascinating, and that's a big part of our conference.
And it has a latter-day context because Nimrod was imbued with dark, occultic, supernatural power. He was called, in his own way, a giant. And his own peers regarded him as a super leader. And he is the archetype of that which is to come in the latter days. And that's what made Michael Lake's book so interesting.
You mentioned the word giant, and the first word that popped into my head was Tom Horn.
Yeah.
You know, Tom is both a good friend and the co-sponsor of the Rocky Mountain International Prophecy Conference.
Right.
He and Chris Putnam have a new book out, The Final Roman Emperor and the Last Crusade. It's a sequel to Petrus Romanus and Exo Vaticana. You know, I think this may be the final book in the in the trilogy. Fascinating book. Chris Putnam is going to be at our conference. You're going to see him via live streaming here in just another week.
And when Chris Putnam speaks, it's on the basis of deep research. He always just blows me away. His references to obscure books that nobody else knows about. You know, his footnotes are more interesting than the text. But he comes up with things that nobody else does.
Well, when you say obscure footnotes, the first name that popped into my head was Ken Johnson. I mean, Ken Johnson is a Bible researcher. He's going to be at our conference speaking on the Book of Enoch. You know, we just finished a special DVD with Ken that we're going to have at our conference for the first time. And he goes back in history and looks at the ancient writings of Enoch, and are they credible for the day we live in? Because Enoch opens up his book by talking about, my book is written to people who are alive during the tribulation period.
Now, when you talk about prophecy, you cannot leave out archaeology. The two go hand in hand. Of course, a moment ago we talked about the Temple Mount, the Temple platform, and history, and also prophecy, because there will be a third temple, the temple of the Antichrist. And when Randall Price speaks, people listen. And we're going to have Randall Price speaking on that and another subject, Bob.
On the Temple Mount and on the search for Noah's Ark, which I know is utterly fascinating. I got a chance to watch Randall's movie on Noah's Ark in the theater here a couple years ago. And it left such an impression on me. You know, you talk about Mount Ararat and you climb and you're looking for the ark, but I've never seen anybody pull out a chainsaw 30 degrees below zero and begin to cut through 60 feet of ice with a chainsaw. And actually, I mean, you and I saw this movie together,
Yes.
and we were just in awe of what these people go through, you know, to try to find this ancient relic. I don't know if we'll ever find Noah's Ark. It's immaterial. He's going to be at the conference talking about the search for the ark.
Well, he believes there's good archaeological evidence now available using modern technology that actually demonstrates that the ark is up there. So that's very interesting, Bob.
And you know, you can't have a conversation about archaeology without talking about Tim Mahoney.
Oh,
Now, Tim
yeah.
has produced a feature film called Patterns of Evidence. He's going to be at our event. He's going to be live streaming his message. Tim has actually tracked the timeline from the Israelites leaving the land of Egypt to the Promised Land. And some of the things that Tim exposes in his DVD are embarrassing to Egyptologists because he's created a new timeline. And when that timeline is corrected in ancient history, you can see how the pieces of the puzzle fall into place, that the Bible is 100% accurate and true, and the Egyptologists who are supposed to be so smart are not so smart after all.
Well, it's because they don't believe the Bible, whereas he does. And I love his discovery of a statue that may very well be a statue of Joseph. And guess what? It has a coat of many colors on it.
Painted on.
Can you believe
painted
it?
on coat of many colors. You know, and it's bigger than life.
Yeah.
Along with 12 tombs all around the palace of
Right.
Joseph for his brothers. This is an amazing discovery. Now, we got to talk about another amazing discovery. I made the mistake of putting up a post on our Facebook page yesterday. Our good friend L.A. Marzulli has made, I guess what you could call an archaeological discovery, something that is not bright and cheery and happy, something that's very dark and ominous, something you're going to see via our live streaming feed. I put up a picture of this, let's just call it a creature for lack of a better word, on Facebook yesterday. And boy, did we get savaged by people. You know, the creepiest thing ever, you know, Barnum and Bailey, you know, selling hucksters. Well, LA has x-rays of this creature. LA has medical opinions of this creature. We're not going to put the graphic up on TV because it is pretty creepy. But go to our Facebook page if you get really curious. You'll be able to see it up there.
You know, here's the thing. L.A. is gifted, and I think he's called of the Lord to investigate things that the rest of us sort of leave alone. He goes places that I wouldn't go, and he interviews people on the outer edge of believability. And I think God has essentially led him to do that. And what he's investigating is the prophecies that we find in the Bible concerning the occult world and how it's going to explode into existence in the latter days. And I think he's gifted to study that and to bring evidence that it's actually happening. I think he's very well equipped to defend this discovery that Bob's talking about. And it needs to be defended because there are a lot of people out there that are saying, no, this is a fraud.
Well, you go back to his discovery of the elongated skulls in Peru.
Right.
And LA believes that these are leftovers from the time of Joshua, that these are the remnants of the Nephilim, when Joshua was ordered by God to basically start destroying this race of giants that we see birthed in Genesis 6. They fled the Promised Land. They got in boats and they hit the road, and a lot of them landed on the shores of South America and many other island countries, as Steve Quayle can testify. But LA is actually have some of these skulls. You're going to see these at the conference. These are not human. I mean, these are some type of strange aberration.
Aberration, to be sure. There is a dark side out there. And I think back to the children of Israel. God said, go into the Promised Land. You take that Promised Land. You have my urging to do it. And they sent spies in. The spies came back and said, no, we can't fight those giants. Well, Bob, there really were giants. They were not humans. There's a lot of scoffing about that. There are doubters who say, those weren't real giants at all. But the discussion today is not only about the reality of those giants, but the reality of that dark world that opposes the world that is found in the Bible, both Old Testament and New Testament. We are commanded to go out in the name of the Lord and, if you will, fight those giants, those dark occultic forces. And I think that's one of the things that really motivates us with the International Prophecy Conference upcoming. We want to educate you on topics, as Bob said a moment ago, that you'll never hear about in church. Having said that, I want to go back to Bob at this time and let him tell you once again how you can watch this International Prophecy Conference.
Yeah, it's really going to be terrific. For starters, the first thing you want to do is go to prophecywatchers.com. That's our website. There's a live streaming banner up on the website. All you've got to do is click on it, and literally it will open up all of the speakers, all of the messages, all of the times, the rooms they're speaking in. You'll be able to sign up for one of two rooms individually, the main ballroom or the Aspen room. Now, it's $50 to hear 21 messages in the main ballroom. It's another $50 to hear another 20 messages in the Aspen room. But 99% of the people who've signed up for the live streaming so far have signed up to stream both rooms. You're going to get 41 messages for a discounted price of $79.95. Now, you need the internet to get the live streaming feed. It's a simple process. You go to a website, you enter a password. We have your email address. We are going to stream those 41 messages right to your computer. Now, if you have Apple TV, they'll stream right onto the TV in your family room. It's not complicated. It's not overly difficult to do. The sign-up process on our website is simple, and it works just like a DVR. If you've ever recorded a program on a DVR, you'd know how easy it is to go back and watch it later. Watch it live, watch it at night, watch it a week from now, watch it 59 days from now, because we have a 60-day window for you to watch all 41 of those messages.
Quick question. ProphecyWatchers.com is our website. If you go to ProphecyWatchers.com, where do you go on the website to find out about live streaming, and what do you pursue?
You click the live streaming banner.
Aha.
And once you see the banner, it opens up the entire conference website, all the speakers, all the bios, all the messages, and then all the way at the bottom are a couple little buttons where you're able to sign up for the main ballroom, the Aspen room, or choose both rooms at a discount for $79.95.
Great. You know, when people come to our prophecy conferences, and Bob can validate this, we hear one person after another say, wow, I'm so glad I came. I'm hearing things here that I never hear in church. Right, Bob?
And all the time.
All the time. And we hope you join us because we believe that we are in the last days. Not only that, we believe that we're in the critical hours of the last days. There may not be much time. You need to educate yourself. You need to get as much information as you possibly can so that you can go out and give the good word to your friends, to your neighbors, word that will encourage them to receive the Lord Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. Bob, thanks a lot. We appreciate your savvy knowledge on all of these things.
1 week to go.
1 week to go. I'm Gary Stearman. Hey, you keep watching. We are. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.